Hi everybody, welcome back to the Starlight Haven. My name is Tabitha Romero and I have a energy report for, well, today's the 17th. So it's going to be something that's not just for October. It's going to be something that's for the whole of 2026. So this is energy that we just want to be paying attention to for this upcoming year and the rest of this year. So we have about 2 months left of October, and so it's important that we give ourselves the compassion that we need. I'm not really going to be promoting overacting and doing more, because this message is overall about going inward and just looking at ourselves and seeing what's there and having compassion for those parts of ourselves. Okay, so I have my notes up and I live channeled this a couple days ago. And so I'm going to go through and just give a rundown of the information that's here. And so I want to recognize we as people are consuming at a rapid rate, whether we are talking about media, whether we are talking about products, whether we are talking about books, movies, whatever it is, we are at an all-time high of consumption. And with that consumption comes a lot of subliminal messaging that is aiming to essentially deter us from hearing our own voice in the noise. And this is especially coming through our social media apps, through news outlets. These are things that we are consuming. And we want to look at why society would even be structured this way in the first place. We really want to think about why this is happening. And the first thing is to ensure that we essentially stay in a state that is starved and undernourished. They want to ensure that we stay in a world that is dependent on the solutions that the people in charge, provide. And these are people that you're really never going to see their faces. You're not going to know their names and who they are. But it's this invisible force that we all know is essentially driving things for us, right? They're making the decisions for us. And what that creates is this false dichotomy in which we are told there's no middle ground, right? We are given, Democrat and Republican. Those are two prime examples, right? We have all this middle ground that's here, right? Like you have this idea that like, okay, well, I could be an independent, but realistically, who ends up in office, right? They want you to think that you have a choice in sides, but they want to be the ones who provide those sides and those choices. And so they don't want you to see the middle ground. They don't want you to see what happens when you step outside of the false dichotomy and start creating your own solutions and start really seeing that there is ample space to create and to create movement in our lives, right? Because they want us to be blinded by the false dichotomy. And that's the word that we will be keeping in mind as we go through this energy report. And so at the moment, we are being supported in actually moving away from these stories. And what these stories have created is a narrative of good and bad, and we have good versus evil. And we do this, we move away from these stories by exploring our own depths and realizing that we are doing ourselves a disservice, others a disservice, and the world a disservice if we do not honor our worth and we are simply told what to believe about ourselves and others. Okay, so this transmission is going to be exploring spells that are coming to the surface for witnessing, and these are related to the Knights Templar Order, and this is historical, right? So you can go on the internet and do a little research and see what's there for you. But a lot of these orders were occult and mystical and ended up essentially holding on and continuing as history went on, even though they might have taken new names. But we can see this present in just the way that we have, in the UK, you have a queen and a king, and you have their emblem is usually shrouded with a Knight Templar cross. And so these things were coming back for witnessing, so we could see them and look at them, that they were going to be coming up in certain scenarios. That's what I kept feeling, was like we were going to see it more often. And these are spells that have put it within our society, things like saviordom and enemy constructs. And we are still running on these things today in our own lives, right? These spells have impacted the way that we even consume products and media, because they provide us the options that were chosen for us. Essentially, they were chosen for us. And so it also impacts the way that we are viewing ourselves and others, because we get so used to being in the cycle of consuming that we begin to commodify ourselves, our own life, and the lives of others, right? And to the same degree as a product rather than as individual human beings. And those in charge, quote unquote, again, don't necessarily see you as valuable. If they did see us as valuable, we wouldn't have so much, income disparity. We wouldn't have so much starvation in the world if we were all seen as valuable. If that message was one that we really wanted promoted throughout the world, we wouldn't have all of these things that we currently have. And because they don't see us as valuable, they find ways to start to subliminally undermine our own worth to ourselves. And this is possible simply through storytelling that occurred through history. And it is why it is so important and integral that we begin to step out of the shallowness of the status quo and into our own depths to learn who we are without the noise of others. So with that said, welcome to the Starlight Haven. We are going to go ahead and start. So what came through first was that we consume things based on a scale of 1 through 5, a 5 to 5 star, 1 to 5 star rating. And what first came through with this is to essentially think about the things that you purchase and the ways that you consume. So this could be a movie, a show, a book, or, even your Amazon wish list, right? Before you buy anything, you're typically looking at the reviews of other people, and this is going to influence the choices that you make. For example, a book could sound absolutely amazing, right? You're like, wow, this storyline calls to me. There's something about the cover. Something about this book is calling me to just open it, read it, and see what's in it for me. But when you go to check the reviews, you see that 4 or 5 people, it doesn't even have to be that many to be honest, have written 1, 2 star reviews, whatever, lower scored reviews on this book. And right away, we may be less inclined to pick up that book because of that poor review. And from then on, we've kind of blocked out our own innate wisdom and allowed the opinions of others to shape the way that we make our decisions. So yeah, your inherent wisdom could have been totally telling you that this book had something that you needed, but it became bypassed because it didn't meet the needs of someone who isn't even you. So we allow a general consensus to begin to represent us and our needs. And this is more or less how we are making most of our decisions. We create this imaginary scale in our mind, even when we are looking at ourselves. And so what gives somebody a good or bad review? What gives us a good or bad review? Despite what our innate wisdom may be telling us. Is it, their job? Is it how much money they're making? Is it how much money we're making? Is it the job that we're holding? Is it us not having children by a certain age? Is it our body? It reinforces what is good or bad. but we don't even know who's setting these standards. We have no idea. We don't know who decided one day that, carving your own path was going to be a bad thing, that looking a certain way was going to be a bad thing. Somebody else told us that. The only answer to that question about who sets the standards should be us. We should be the only people that set the standards for our own worth. Our worth can't be measured on a scale of 1 through 5, and our existence alone is innate worthiness. We are being given that push to start to live this truth again and to learn to trust ourselves, because that is our core expression, is to trust ourselves. So when we learn to trust ourselves, we are beginning to lend that trust to other people as well. We learn to trust other people because we trust ourselves, and we also learn to trust spirit. And when I say we learn to trust spirit, we are learning to trust that we will always have our needs met. We will always be able to provide ourselves with what we need because we know our needs. Because we are the only ones who really can know those needs and express those needs to other people, and to have the courage to express those needs to others. So when we are stepping outside of the scale, we are setting the intention to explore our depths and learn our own needs intimately. So this is what we are stepping into as we are witnessing these Knights Templar spells that are coming up to the surface. We are eliminating this, narrow view and perspective of ourselves and allowing drama to fall away. We aren't guided by an internal war, but a navigation system of the heart. This is creating expansion that allows our spirit teams to come in and deliver us exactly what we need. And this is an infinite supply because the channel for receiving is no longer narrow. We've created an infinite amount of space and room for ourselves, for others to exist as well without being at war with us, and for spirit to support us in the co-creation of, the world that we are dreaming of now. So these old systems or spells can be spotted on the planet as what I would call metaphorically dry terrain. So these areas are ones that are undernourished, starved, and will be in need of hydration. And these areas, because we are connected to the Earth's ley lines, will also be connected to our own body meridians that reflect the ley lines of the Earth. And these meridians are specifically going to be in our legs. So historically, it can look like the intentional starvation of a people using foods. Withholding food will send a message that I'm in charge of your survival. It is a tactic of war. This is something that you can witness today in Gaza. That is why food is so important, because it has become very metaphorical. What's interesting is that we've essentially managed to get a whole population, we can look at the United States specifically, in choosing this reality for ourselves, right? Nobody had to take our food away. We took it from ourselves just through influence of media and diet culture, where we decided, well, I'd rather starve and undernourish my body, set all these food restrictions for myself, because I don't trust the inherent wisdom of my body to tell me exactly what I need and want, because I have to fit a certain body type, I have to look a certain way. And this is the root of a lot of ED. And so if you've been on my page before, I have struggled with an eating disorder for most of my life, and it has been a really big initiation into the world of food and nourishment and what that looks like for everybody. And it's not a one size fits all situation, right? Not like anything else. It's like the review thing. One size does not fit all people. We have to decide what is right for us, and that includes food. So diet culture, we have to essentially know and understand that there is a huge consumerism market around it, that people are willing to consume these situations and unhealthy habits of deprivation, of starving, to fit a certain narrative, that is deemed as acceptable. This is a really old tactic that I was psychically tuning into with these spells that were perpetuated by the Knights Templar Order. And these spells related to starvation are going to be a direct reflection of the nourishment of ourselves as a whole and our worthiness. Another thing that I was psychically tuning into when I was feeling into these spells is that it's like a sense of creating problems, intentionally creating problems, intentionally creating evil circumstances so that people would be put into a position in which they were in fight or flight, and they had these, people, the same people who created the problem, to provide them the solution. That way they could feel like they had somebody to depend on to save them in moments of desperation. And so a lot of tricky business was happening when that was occurring. A lot of control was being taken place over the people through these tactics of starvation. And starvation in these situations of controlling people is particularly useful because if food does not come, it's a lot harder for people to trust the body, trust that it'll be fed, trust that it'll be nourished. And that is what essentially pushes us into fight or flight. And a lot of us are still in those situations where we're in fight or flight over, but we won't really know why, right? Because some of these things got pushed into being socially acceptable. So we have to realize that we are the solution. Us together as a collective are the solution to these spells and healing these things deep within our own cellular memory. So we provide the hydration to these dry spots, it's dry terrain that's out in the world, but also in our own body, by getting our legs fully submerged into the depths instead of wading in the shallows. This is happening for us, and it can feel scary because going into the depths also means change, and we've been taught to fear change because in the past, we may have been taught this through our own lives or through history, maybe our past lives, that change essentially means that we are going to be put in danger, that we will not be safe. And that can be hard when the body is relearning safety. But in order to relearn some of the safety, we have to make changes. And some of these changes need to take place. And that could be to our lives, to our own physical bodies, right? It could mean changes to our relationships. So that can be really scary for us. Even if we know some of these old habits may not be the most healthy, it could be hard for us to give them up because they are our coping mechanisms. They have become our solutions. So we can imagine these situations. When I talk about shallow and depth, we can imagine it like a pool. And so the shallow end could be sort of like what we've been taught to believe, our societal expectations, the scale of 1 through 5 stars. That's where the shallows are. And the shallows are actually really important because it's where we start to see that we're uncomfortable with the situations that we are living in. And so what do we do when we get so uncomfortable, when our heart yearns to explore, is that we put on a safety jacket until we are ready. And so that safety jacket could also mean being able to go back to the shallow whenever we want to, in order to let ourselves know that it's okay to be here, that there's nothing wrong. We're not stalled when we're here. This is okay. We can come back whenever we need it. But we also need to know that that safety jacket is essentially spirit encapsulating us in love and support. And so when we take the chance and we start to go into the depths to really start to explore ourselves, we can float here, right? And we can touch with our legs the depth of our being. But eventually we have to take that life jacket off, knowing that we're safe enough to swim. And so that's when we really get into the juicy part The scary parts are darkness that we are afraid of, and we really start to, swim in those waters, dive deep, and really explore who we are and meet our needs intimately. So every moment we're either spending, in the shallow or in the depths, they're all really one pool, right? They're not separate from each other. It's one pool, and there's still this like area here that we can start to really explore as well. And the whole point is to know that we're not at a standstill when we're doing this. We are learning in this area to soften enough to allow our spirit and the spirit of the world to really come in and come together, and help us with our healing, but also help each other with our healing together, and to co-create a new reality with one another in which we are really fully honoring each other in this way, where we're not like, I see you on a scale of 1 through 5, like you're worthy or you're unworthy, because we see our inherent worthiness. And if we truly see our inherent worthiness, we will also truly see the inherent worthiness of other people and see them as worthy of change, and see them as ourselves, right? And see them as being able to bring something to the table for us, and vice versa. And that's where we work together and we really start to grow, is when we start to trust one another. And that takes time, right? And that takes us doing it first with ourselves, of course. But this is prosperity coming back to the world. This is nourishment coming back to the world after a long, long period of starvation. And that is just trusting ourselves and others to see the inherent worthiness that we all exude. Okay, so the last message that was coming in is related to some of these literal dry spots. Still metaphorical, but like actual dry spots on the grid that are related to shamanic drumming. So if you are someone who likes to drum shamanically or otherwise, maybe you have a different form of drumming, it can be really helpful in standing in solidarity with the earth. So again, staying with that same message of not trying to fix anything or save anything, or change anything, but synchronizing your own heartbeat. Because that's, to me, what a lot of the time when I set the intention to drum for an area, I am syncing my heartbeat to the beat of a drum and to the beat of Gaia's own heartbeat. And together, we are sitting in solidarity with one another. And that is what it's like, bringing it to life and bringing that love and, again, nourishment back into the planet. Reminding ourselves that we are connected. And so these areas were Giza, so Egypt, Tulum, Mexico, Sarasota, Florida, and Lafayette, Florida. And so we are working with the trees when we're doing grid work. And for these areas specifically, it was the lime trees. And so the lime trees on a planetary level will be working with these areas and us to provide nourishment to these dry spots. So setting the intention to drum for these areas will be really supportive right now. And so, yeah, that's all I have for now. This message is one that I would like everybody to keep in mind for the rest of this year, going into 2026, and for the rest of your life, to stop rating things on a scale of 1 to 5 and start to explore the nuances. Like, even if it's like something like, exploring, I'm trying to think of something simple, like skincare or something, right? Something girly. But if you're looking into trying new skincare, right, don't just go based off of what an influencer is trying to sell you on TikTok or Instagram or YouTube. Don't just go based off of reviews that you see on Amazon. Go based on your skin type. What does my skin need? Like, connect with your body, connect with your skin. Like, what do you need specifically? Do you need hydration? Do you need me just to drink more water? Just getting in touch with what your needs are specifically, to get to know yourself even better, even on that level, where it doesn't always have to be like, who am I viewing today is on a scale of 1 through 5, but starting with what and just exploring that level of yourself is important too. So I'm sending you all love and joy. Goodbye, everybody.